Deep below the waves, a single mistake can threaten an entire submarine. The law does not stop at the water's edge. Out here, there are no police, only the chain of command. When someone breaks military law in this sealed world, the response is immediate. The consequences are inescapable. But how is justice actually carried out when escape is impossible? The answer reveals a system and a tension few outside the submarine fleet ever witness. Aboard a United States Navy submarine, the law is never out of reach. Every sailor, from the most junior crew member to the commanding officer, remains subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice known as UCMJ at all times, no matter how deep the boat dives or how far it travels from shore. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is not just a set of rules carried in a binder. It is the living legal backbone of military life, binding each person to a standard of conduct that does not pause for distance or isolation. Jurisdiction inside a submarine is clear and immediate. Unlike civilian life, where police and courts are separate from the workplace, the commanding officer, known as the CO, serves as the primary legal authority on board. The CO is responsible not only for the safety and mission of the vessel, but also for maintaining order and discipline among the crew. This authority is not symbolic. Under Article 15 of the UCMJ, the commanding officer can initiate non-judicial punishment, known as captain's mast on the spot, handling many offenses directly without waiting for shore-based legal teams. If necessary, the commanding officer can also recommend more serious action, including courts-martial, to higher command once the submarine returns to port. The reach of the commanding officer's authority is shaped by both tradition and regulation. Navy regulations, reinforced by decades of operational experience, expect the commanding officer to act decisively when discipline or safety is threatened. There is no separate law enforcement department on a submarine. Instead, the chain of command, including division officers, chiefs, the executive officer, and the commanding officer, forms the only line of authority. When an incident occurs, the response is not delayed by distance or bureaucracy. The commanding officer can order preliminary inquiries, restrict privileges, or remove a sailor from sensitive duties, all within the confines of the boat. These actions are governed by the Manual for Courts Martial and detailed Navy legal instructions, but the responsibility rests squarely on the shoulders of the command team. This legal framework is not theoretical. Even submerged hundreds of miles from the nearest port, the standards of military justice remain unchanged. Every action, every decision, and every order is subject to the same scrutiny as it would be ashore. The chain of command does not just enforce discipline, it embodies the law itself, ensuring that order is preserved and that misconduct is addressed, no matter how far below the surface the submarine may be. This unbroken thread of authority and accountability is what allows the Navy to operate safely and effectively in the most isolated environment on Earth. Aboard a submarine, certain behaviors do more than disrupt order. They can threaten the safety of every person sealed inside the hull. The Uniform Code of Military Justice lists a range of offenses, but in the confined world below the surface, some violations carry unique weight. Failure to obey a lawful order under Article 92 is not just a paperwork issue. Ignoring a standing safety procedure or bypassing a tag out on critical equipment could put the entire vessel at risk. Even a single lapse, like leaving a hatch unsecured or skipping a step in a maintenance checklist, can invite disaster in an environment where mistakes have no margin. Assault under Article 128 takes on a different meaning in a space where privacy is almost non-existent and tempers can flare under pressure. A physical altercation in a passageway or berthing area is not just a personal dispute, it can fracture trust across the crew and disrupt the careful balance required for the mission. Theft under Article 121 includes not only personal belongings but also government equipment. On a submarine, every tool, every piece of gear is accounted for. A missing item might mean a system cannot be repaired in an emergency, or a critical task cannot be completed. Tampering with military property under Article 108 covers any unauthorized interference with the submarine's complex systems. This could be as direct as disabling a sensor or as subtle as altering maintenance records. Either way, the risk goes beyond the individual. One act of sabotage or carelessness can compromise navigation, propulsion, or communications, with consequences that extend far beyond disciplinary action. Harassment and sexual misconduct, whether charged under Article 92 for violating Navy policy or under the specific provisions of Article 120 and Article 120C, are treated with zero tolerance. The close quarters and long deployments magnify the impact of such behavior, making it impossible for victims to escape and eroding the trust that holds the crew together. Even offhand comments or unwanted advances can quickly cross the line, triggering formal review and immediate intervention by the command. Possession or use of prohibited items, such as drugs or unauthorized electronics, falls under Article 112A. The introduction of contraband, especially substances that impair judgment or discipline, undermines the safety protocols that keep the submarine operational. In such an enclosed space, even minor rule-breaking can escalate, creating vulnerabilities that adversaries could exploit or that could endanger the mission. Safety violations are treated as especially serious. Bypassing an interlock, entering a restricted compartment without permission, or failing to follow emergency procedures are not abstract infractions. They are direct threats to the survival of the crew. Under Article 134, any conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline, even if not specified elsewhere, is grounds for action. The law recognizes that on a submarine, the margin for error is razor thin. Every regulation exists for a reason, and every violation is a risk the crew cannot afford to take. The moment a possible crime or serious violation is reported on a submarine, the command team moves quickly to stabilize the situation. The executive officer, second only to the commanding officer in authority, takes the lead in the first hours. Immediate safety is the priority. If the report involves violence, sabotage, or a major safety breach, the XO can order the accused sailor relieved from watch and reassigned to a different compartment. Physical separation is enforced not as punishment, but to prevent further risk and to protect both the accused and anyone involved. In some cases, access to sensitive spaces such as the control room, reactor compartments, or weapons lockers is locked down. Only authorized personnel are allowed in or out, and logs are updated to record every entry and exit. The XO works closely with the chief of the boat and division chiefs to ensure that the rest of the crew remains focused on their duties. While the accused may be restricted to their berthing area or a specific workspace, the rest of the boat must continue its mission. If needed, a trusted senior sailor is assigned to supervise the individual under restriction, maintaining order without escalating tension. The chain of command is visible and active, with the XO briefing the CO on every development and documenting each action taken. In these early hours, the boat itself becomes a closed system. There is no outside intervention, no law enforcement team arriving from shore. The command team relies on established procedures to secure evidence and prevent contamination of the scene. Any tools, logs, or digital systems connected to the alleged offense are secured. Witnesses are quietly identified and, when possible, kept apart to preserve the integrity of their statements. Medical checks are arranged if there are injuries or health concerns, and the ship's medical officer is brought in as needed. The process is methodical but urgent. The XO and the CO must balance the need for immediate containment with the rights of everyone involved. Before any formal questioning, the accused is advised of their rights under Article 31 of the UCMJ, including the right to remain silent. The goal is not to rush to judgment, but to create a controlled environment where facts can be gathered and the safety of the crew is never in doubt. Throughout this period, the submarine's routines continue. Watches are adjusted to fill any gaps left by the reassigned sailor. Critical systems remain manned and operational. From the outside, the boat may appear unchanged, but inside, every action is deliberate. The XO's steady hand ensures that discipline is preserved, the crew is reassured, and the groundwork is laid for a fair and thorough investigation. This internal stabilization is the essential first response, buying time and order before the formal investigative process begins. Inside a submarine, the investigation process begins with a careful balance of urgency and precision. The commanding officer faced with a possible crime or serious violation appoints an investigating officer, usually a department head or division officer not directly involved in the incident. This officer is tasked with gathering the facts under the strict guidelines set by the Judge Advocate General's Manual, known as JAGMON. Every step must be documented, every piece of evidence secured, and every witness statement recorded, even as the submarine continues its mission deep below the surface. The investigating officer moves methodically through the boat, conducting interviews in cramped passageways or in the corner of the mess deck. Privacy is scarce. Witnesses are called one by one, their accounts written down or typed into encrypted files. The accused sailor is given Article 31 rights, a reminder that even at sea, legal safeguards must be honored. The investigator collects logs, duty rosters, and digital records from systems connected to the alleged offense. Onboard computers hold a wealth of information: access logs, maintenance entries, and watch standard notes. These records become central pieces of evidence, often more reliable than memory, in the high-pressure environment of a submarine. Preserving the chain of custody for physical and digital evidence is a constant challenge. There are no dedicated evidence lockers or forensic kits like those found on shore. Items are sealed in bags, tagged, and placed in secure compartments with access strictly limited. Every move is logged, every handoff noted, so that nothing is lost or compromised during the weeks or even months before the submarine returns to port. For sensitive cases, such as tampering with classified systems or suspected sabotage, the investigating officer may restrict access to certain compartments and order additional security checks, always under the commanding officer's authority. Communication with legal experts ashore is limited by the submarine's bandwidth. Most messages to the Judge Advocate General or higher command are brief, stripped to essentials, and sent only when operational traffic allows. Detailed legal advice or real-time consultation is rarely possible. The investigating officer and the commanding officer must rely on their training, JAGMAN checklists, and previous experience to ensure the investigation will hold up under later scrutiny. Sometimes questions about evidence handling or procedural steps must wait until the next scheduled transmission or until the submarine surfaces for a routine check-in. Despite these constraints, the investigation is expected to meet the same standards as any inquiry conducted on land. The Navy requires a written report, often due within 30 days, though deployment can stretch this timeline. The investigating officer's findings and recommendations will guide the commanding officer's next decisions, whether to impose non-judicial punishment, request further legal action, or hold the matter for review once the boat returns to port. Every fact gathered, every statement taken, and every log reviewed becomes part of the official record, shaping the outcome long after the submarine resurfaces. Discipline on a submarine is enforced through a combination of well-defined procedures and the steady presence of senior enlisted leadership. When an investigation concludes that a sailor has committed a violation, the commanding officer, CO, may decide to impose non-judicial punishment, often called captain's mast. Unlike civilian courts, there is no jury, no formal prosecutor, and there is no option to leave the process behind. The commanding officer is advised by the executive officer, XO, and the chief of the boat, and together they determine appropriate corrective action under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. UCMJ discipline is continuous and accountable. On patrol, the range of punishments is practical and immediate. A sailor may be reduced in rank, losing both status and pay. Privileges such as access to certain compartments, liberty when in port, or use of recreational equipment can be revoked. Extra duties are a common sanction. Additional cleaning, maintenance, or watchstanding assignments that reinforce the seriousness of the infraction without endangering the mission. These measures are carefully documented in the sailor's record and reported up the chain of command. The chief of the boat plays a central role in enforcing these sanctions day to day, ensuring corrective actions are carried out fairly and consistently. The effect is immediate and measured. Physical confinement is rare and reserved for only the most severe cases, given the realities of space and manpower. Instead, restriction to berthing or workspaces, always under supervision, is the norm. The goal is to restore order and maintain trust among the crew, not to isolate or humiliate the individual. Every corrective measure follows Navy policy and the limits set by the Manual for Courts Martial, with the understanding that the ultimate resolution of more serious offenses may have to wait until the submarine returns to port. The priority is safety and unit cohesion. On board, the authority loop closes with the command team and the chief of the boat, who together uphold discipline and keep the mission moving forward. Corrective actions at sea are procedural, deliberate, and documented, designed to preserve order, protect the ship, and maintain the trust essential to submarine operations. When a submarine docks after deployment, authority over any serious misconduct shifts from the commanding officer to shore-based legal and investigative teams. The Navy's legal process now moves from the close confines of the boat to the broader machinery of military justice. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service, NCIS, reviews evidence collected at sea, including logs, witness statements, digital records, and any physical items preserved during the patrol. Judge Advocate General Corps officers, called JAGs, advise on the admissibility of evidence and the next legal steps. What began as an internal command matter underwater becomes a formal investigation, subject to the same standards as any case on land. In this environment, every detail from the submarine is scrutinized. Chain of custody, witness interviews, and the integrity of digital records are all reviewed for compliance with military law. If the case is severe, the sailor may face non-judicial punishment from a higher authority or be referred for court-martial, where the full range of military legal protections and consequences apply. The process is designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and accountability, even when evidence was gathered under the unique constraints of a submarine at sea. Yet despite these formal mechanisms, the need for such cases remains rare. Submarine crews are selected through rigorous psychological screening, with an emphasis on emotional stability and teamwork. Peer culture is a powerful deterrent. Sailors understand that trust and discipline are necessities for survival underwater. Informal peer correction and self-policing often address minor issues before they escalate, reinforcing a culture where serious misconduct is the exception, not the rule. When the submarine returns to port, the handoff to shore-based authorities ensures that serious matters receive the full legal review they require. Beneath the ocean, order is enforced by trust and the unbroken authority of the chain of command. Today, every United States submariner remains accountable to military law, no matter how far they go. As new threats and missions push crews deeper, that discipline is not just tradition, it is the last safeguard for lives, secrets, and national security. In these depths, integrity is non-negotiable. Share your thoughts on what accountability means in extreme environments below.